Hi everyone! This is the video tutorial for the Mother's Day Special Edition Embroidery Kit. In this video, I'm gonna walk you through the steps of how to embroider all of these 3 designs. This Special Edition Embroidery Kit comes with the pattern for all 3 designs, the instruction card, an embroidery hoop, 5 different colors of embroidery floss, a needle threader, a practice fabric, an embroidery needle, 1 linen for embroidery, and extra fabric for lining. With this kit, you can only embroider 1 design, so pick which design out of the 3 that you would like to embroider. Since we'll mostly be embroidering letters on all 3 designs, I'm gonna pick this one to embroider from start to finish. Whichever design you choose to make, you can use the same techniques to embroider the letters from this design. But don't worry, because I'll also be showing you how to embroider the flower and the star details from the other 2 designs. Before we begin embroidering, what you want to do is to iron out these fold markings on both fabrics. And to make sure that we don't mistake one fabric for the other, this white softer linen is for embroidering and this stiffer beige fabric is for the lining. Once we've ironed out the markings, we're gonna take the white linen and place it on top of the pattern. While making sure that the pattern is at the center of the linen, we're gonna start tracing the pattern onto it. For tracing, you can either use a regular pencil or this heat-erasable Pilot friction pen. Either one will work just fine, but I'll be using this heat-erasable pen, so it's gonna be easier to remove the markings afterwards. I've also linked the pen on the description box below so you can check that out on our store if you're interested. Once we finish tracing the pattern, we can now put it onto the hoop. You can either use this hoop that comes with the kit or a regular embroidery hoop. This hoop doesn't come with a screw, but you can easily pop it open just like this. And separate the 2 pieces. Now grab the inner piece and place the linen on top of it. Make sure that the pattern is at the center of the hoop. Now grab the outer piece and pop it back into place. Since the pattern is still not centered, I'm just gonna pull the linen a little bit to the left. And now I'm just gonna pull on the other sides as well to make sure that it is tight and taut. This is very important so that the linen is not wrinkly after you finish embroidering. Next, we're gonna prepare the embroidery flosses. So for each color, you'll find 7 strands of embroidery flosses. And for each floss, what you want to do is to split it into 6 separate strands. One trick I've discovered is to split the end first, and while using your left hand to hold it all together, use your right hand to pull each strand out. We'll still be using all 6 strands, but I found that by splitting them first for satin stitch, the floss will spread out more and make your embroidery look more even. Now that that's done, we'll align all 6 strands and put them closer to each other, but make sure you don't twist them back again. Now to thread the needle, you can either use this needle threader or just thread it directly. Make sure that all 6 strands are threaded and pull them all down. Once that's done, we're gonna tie a knot at the longer end. Place your floss behind the needle and wrap it around the needle for 3 times. While still holding it on your left fingers, pull it all the way down and use your nails to secure the knot at the bottom. We have a separate video for threading with a needle threader. I'm gonna link it here so you can check that out too. Now that that's done, I'm gonna show you the basic techniques of satin stitch. I've drawn these 2 lines on a separate linen and I'm gonna show you 2 ways you can use to do a satin stitch. This first one on the left is what is called the scooping method. I'm just gonna start by taking my needle and poke the linen on this spot from the back side and pull it all the way up until I feel the knot stops behind the linen. And then I'm gonna fill it all the way up like this, but instead of poking all the way through, what you wanna do is poke halfway in and then out to the other side. Then I'll pull the needle to create the stitch. So we'll repeat that to create more stitches. Now to end the stitch, instead of poking halfway, I'm gonna poke all the way back and pull all the thread to the back and show you how to stitch this line with a different technique. Since this line is just nearby and I still have enough floss to work on, I won't be tying a knot and cut the floss just yet. Instead, I'm just gonna start on this spot directly and pull the floss out. The same way I ended the stitch for the first line, I'll be poking the needle all the way through to create a stitch. So unlike the scooping method, I'll be poking all the way up and down through the linen. So we'll repeat that to create more stitches. Now to end the stitch, I'm gonna poke all the way to the back and create a knot at the back side. As you can see, whichever method you go with, the result will still be the same, but the scooping method can be a faster one. To create the knot at the back, I have flipped my embroidery to its back side. Now you can see where I initially started the stitch, and instead of cutting it off, I just crossed to the other line and embroidered till this point. To create the knot, put your needle against the linen like this, and as you hold it in place with your left thumb, wrap the floss tightly around the needle 3 times. Now move your left thumb and hold them in place as you pull the needle up. Once you've made sure that the knot is tight and secure, you can cut off the excess floss. So that is how to end a stitch. You can use this technique after you finish stitching or when you are running out of floss. Now I'm gonna show you how you can embroider this pattern with the same satin stitch technique. Start embroidering the same way I did, with whichever technique you prefer. And once you get to this point, embroider slightly outward to this line. Even though it's no longer a straight line, you can still embroider within the pattern like this. Now that I'm done with that side, I'm gonna move on to this side. But instead of embroidering from the bottom, I'm gonna embroider from the top since it's the nearest. The key is to find the nearest spot to start your stitch. That way you won't accidentally embroider on the crossing floss at the back. Now I'm gonna embroider the remaining part. Since I still have enough floss to work on, I won't be tying a knot and cut the floss just yet. Instead, I'll start embroidering on the O directly. Even though it's no longer a straight line, you can still embroider within the pattern like this. For this M, I'm just gonna do the same thing I did with the other M. Since I'll be using a different color for the other part, I'll be tying a knot at the back and cut off the excess floss. Now that I'll be working with a new floss, I'll split the floss into 6 strands and do the same thing I did in the beginning. Make sure you don't forget to tie a knot at the end of the new floss too. As you can see, I started by stitching these 2 vertical lines first. But instead of stitching 2 full horizontal lines, I'll just be filling the empty spots so it won't be too bulky. This is also how you would stitch the letter H in the other design. Now I'll just stitch the remaining part. And that is how to embroider the letters on this kit. You can use the techniques from this video to embroider any letter for the other 2 designs too. In the part 2 of this video, I'm gonna show you how to embroider this circle, the flower on this design, and the star details on this design. So see you on part 2!